Well, I hope you enjoyed yesterday the Bible Project video on overview of Deuteronomy. And again, I highly recommend the Bible Project, any of their resources. They just do, from my perspective, an amazing job of helping give us and remind us of the overall picture of the scriptures and connecting how each of the books or themes just weave together into this grand narrative. It's all about Jesus. So, Deuteronomy chapter 1 is just what I'm going to look at specifically today. Um, Moses gives a history lesson. Deuteronomy is kind of second law. And so there's some things that are repeated, but also kind of change a little bit from the first instance the law was given. Again, if you remember from a couple days ago, just talking about the Old Testament wasn't a fixed set of rigid rules and regulations. It was guidelines. It was wisdom in a sense of how to make good discernments going forward. So here's Moses giving more direct instructions, but again, it's in that sense of not legal regulations as much as wisdom to make good decisions and to live a life loving God, loving others, to use, again, Jesus' language. Deuteronomy has 5 speeches. If you remember again from yesterday, here's Moses beginning the first one, and he's recounting how the nation got to where they are today. Kind of almost the reason it being those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. And in the midst of that, I just want to draw our attention to one thing. And that's Moses twice, verse 21 and verse 29, commands the people to not be afraid. If we go back earlier this week, Moses got so upset at the 2.5 tribes because they weren't going into the land. And Moses was afraid the nation would get afraid and then they wouldn't even go into the land. And here they are. Again, later on, Moses is giving these 5 speeches to the whole nation, and he commands them not to be afraid. Because if they'd given to fear, they won't follow God in faith. And what do I mean by faith? By allegiance, by loyalty, by obedience. That if the second generation here at the border of the promised land give in to fear, they will repeat the mistake of the previous generation. They won't act in obedience to God. They won't act in trust of God. They won't act in loyalty to what God has told them to do. I've given this land to you. It's yours. Follow me. Trust me. Act in obedience and allegiance to me. Because it's already yours. It's a promised land. Now, I've not done the count. I've heard this multiple times, and so I'm going to assume it is true. The command, do not be afraid, appears in English translations at least 365 times, one for every day of the year. It's at least over 350 times. It's a well-repeated command. So whether or not it's once a day for our calendar year, which by the way, doesn't really kind of work in the sense of being some kind of divine code, because Israel worked on a lunar calendar. So anyways, sometimes we get kind of off on weird numbers as symbols that just isn't biblical. And there's a tangent we really didn't need. But anyways, you got it. The command, do not fear, stated at least over 300 times, 350 times. Because fear will lead us, at least it can lead us, if it's not a healthy fear, if it's not a fear that's focused on what God says to fear. And there's things that God says to fear. Fear the power of sin. Fear him. I mean, put him as the place of ultimate respect and orientation in our lives. Fear, when we fear anything else other than God and what he calls us to be concerned about, it will lead us to disobedience. It will lead us to apathy. It will lead us to inaction. It will lead us away from following King Jesus. And so just want to invite you, and sometimes it's hard for us to see what we're afraid of. And so maybe a question to ask yourself is, where am I acting in a way not in obedience to Jesus because I'm more concerned about something else being lost, someone else's opinion, someone else's respect, some relationship? Where are you tempted to fear? And bring it to God. And as you do that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today would you know his peace. God bless.